Would the biggest failure of the Diamondbacks season be not trading away their players here at the deadline? Derek Montilla, your mayor PHNX, along with the GM of this joint, Espo, to discuss if the Arizona Diamondbacks at this point of their season, after just losing 2 out of 3 to the Pittsburgh Pirates, if it would be possibly the biggest mistake of their season here. Obviously now things have not gone their way. There's been a lot of bad, and that's basically in the past. We are where we are. The Diamondbacks have lost the personnel. They've lost this season. It will go down as a huge disappointment this year, which is something you guys over at the Suns are familiar with lately, with adding to teams or getting close. Again, very similar paths here between these two teams. But right now, the Diamondbacks are in a position to trade away some of their guys that are on expiring contracts. They've already made moves now for Josh Naylor and Randall Grichuk. Espo, would it be a mistake for them to not pursue trading essentially the rest of their talent that are on expiring contracts?
Yeah, I was of the mindset last week where maybe you sit on it and keep Suarez and see what plays out, get some bullpen help. But after watching what happened in that Pirates series, I just don't see a world where you can justify, keeping Merrill Kelly, keeping Suarez, keeping Zach Gallen, and not making moves that can bring you guys that can potentially help you next season, because you're not going anywhere if you play like you did against the Pirates. I think all hope was kind of closed in that series, right? And
all hope was abandoned.
Yes.
You abandoned all hope.
Yeah, I feel like that's just the case. Like there's no way you can justify not trading these guys now. And I get that they have a very high expectation of what they'll get back for Gino Suarez, but right. I think you should take anything because they're going to walk.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. They're going to price themselves out of what you can afford. And after spending like they did coming into this season and failing as badly as they did, injuries or not,
right?
You're not going to spend that money again this offseason to keep those guys.
You're not. And I think that's the big thing is that the price for these players is getting higher. The only one that it's not really getting higher for is Zach Gallen. And still, I'm sure that there are other teams that believe strongly in Gallen, at least enough to give him a contract that'll satisfy him this offseason as a free agent if the Diamondbacks don't choose to move him, right? But there is a responsibility by Mike Hazen in the front office to make these tough moves. These are moves the fans aren't going to like. These are moves that are going to cause people to stop coming to baseball games. And I think that's the thing that makes it not a popular decision, not an easy decision to make, but this is essentially the time when teams get better. This is how they get better by making these tough decisions when the season is going this way.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Losing is in this town why people won't go to baseball games, and they're going to probably lose if they don't make moves, and they're going to lose if they do the rest of this year.
Right.
So I think you have to look at it as a sunk cost for the next few months and decide, can we do enough at this deadline to maybe be able to plug those holes to stay afloat next season? Because you might be getting to a point where you're punting 26 and then you've got a lockout in 27 potentially.
Right.
Or, what does this future look like? And so you've got to get top value back while you can here over the next 4 days.
And it's the future is messy. The future is messy not only for the Diamondbacks, but for baseball, like you alluded to, in 2027. But, right now the Diamondbacks, like we said, Naylor, Grichuk, those guys have been moved. Now we're on hug watch. We got to start watching dugouts.
Okay. I said this on Southwest Bias today, but I hate that a mid-game trade can happen.
I do too.
You should not be able to agree to a trade while a game is going on and put a player and a team in that awkward situation.
You can already tell mentally this whole trade deadline stuff has impacted this team already, right? But having a player leave in the middle seems ridiculous.
You have a bat going on, and the entire broadcast shifts to the guy hugging people in the dugout.
It's crazy. And I know it's nothing new. That's something we get in response. It is nothing new, but it's something stupid. And considering that we're trying to make sports better and advance things to make more sense, I do feel like, not trading a player mid-game is a great start for the trade deadline. Also, isn't that the most your season is over move ever. I know that, like, yeah, maybe sometimes you might be moving a guy and getting a better guy, but for the most part, having a trade happen in the middle of the game pretty much feels like white flag territory.
Yeah, I mean, and I always felt like the trade in the middle of the game is kind of like a parent taking the kid out of class 15 minutes before school
Yeah, why are
ends.
we doing this? 15
Everybody
minutes
else
early?
is like, why?
Yeah.
What is going on?
He's going to get a absence now for this?
Huh?
Yeah, it doesn't make
And
any
now we
sense.
got to call it a hug out because they're hugging in the dugout. I'm not okay.
Yeah, no, I hate it. But the Diamondbacks do have the usual suspects, the ones we've talked about. You brought up Gino. You obviously have Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly. Those are guys that are expiring contracts that could be moved. Shelby Miller, another guy, might be moved. Jalen Beeks might be moved. These are guys also on expiring contracts. But the talk last week shifted because of a comment Mike Hazen made during his Zoom availability after the trade for Josh Naylor. And this is what Mike Hazen had to say. This was what he said about players not on expiring contracts that he's also taking calls on.
So the contract guys are definitely taking up the majority, if not all, of our attention. I'm not going to shock you with this comment, but of the guys that Cattell, Corbin, Moreno, Perdomo, Fott, Nelson, like the younger group that's under long-term control, they're all calling me about them too. So it's just one of those things where you have to, in almost every conversation, would you guys talk about these guys at all? And, if I say, depends on what you're talking about, it would be a haul. That usually shuts the conversations down pretty quickly. So the majority of the conversations that are real conversations in my mind surround the guys that are coming up. Most times at the deadline, anytime you're talking about controllable guys, you can have some conversations around them sometimes, but invariably everybody just says, well, this is something that doesn't have to happen right now. We can kick it to the off season if it's something we want to talk about. But I'm not as inclined to do those things. I think, my focus is more on the guys that are expiring at the end of the year. So that's just sort of the nature of what happens right now.
So you do have the guys, obviously, on the expiring contracts that everybody's talking about, but those comments right there cause people to lose their minds about Ketel Marte obviously being on the market. And as you heard there, that's not really the case. Marte's name kind of liberally got picked out of the group, which
he did clearly say Corbin Carroll.
He said Perdomo, he said Brandon Fott, he said Ryan Nelson, right? Like, so he brought up a lot of names there, right? I think he was just trying to use it as an example, but not really necessarily saying right now that the Diamondbacks are even considering trading those guys. But I mean, obviously it makes all the sense in the context of baseball, but as an outsider looking in, I mean, is there a reason to tear it down to the studs, as Mike Hazen has said, and trade guys beyond just these ones on expiring contracts?
Well, look, I know I'm not a GM of a team, but as a GM of this company, I have to take meetings with a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people, and it doesn't mean that necessarily anything's going to happen. You have to listen because you don't know what could come of a meeting or a discussion, right? So Mike Hazen is doing his job when another general manager calls and says, hey, you interested in moving on from Ketel Marte? And he says, not really, but like, what would you offer? And then usually in those situations, it's nowhere near what the price would be. And you go, thanks, but no thanks. But I think you listen to everything because you may get that deal that nobody expects, right? Where you get an entire team's top, 5 prospects because they so badly want a guy in your roster. Right. I think the only guy that's untouchable is Corbin Carroll.
Yeah.
Like, and you listen, like anybody says Corbin Carroll and you say, we're good. Don't even waste your breath. Everybody else, I think you have to listen.
Yeah. Because
if you don't, you're not doing your due diligence and you might miss the opportunity to dramatically change your future moving forward. And I'm not in his seat. I don't know what he's thinking in terms of next year and what the reality is and what budget they've been told they have to spend. But if next year really isn't a year that they think they're going to compete, then you got to think about it.
Yeah.
You got to consider it.
I think the last thing here, and especially in regards to Gino Suarez, is does keeping him on the team, in your opinion, and I guess this could be in the broader sense of things, like we've seen Gino's reaction to trade rumors. We know how much he has expressed his love for being here, and that there's no part like Gino and Merrill Kelly are both guys I think that a lot of fans would like to see return to this team after the season and sign a new deal, right? But with the season Gino's having, that financially it's seeming a bit, it's more and more unlikely that Gino is able to come back. And just overall, you have the idea here that, again, you might not, as you said earlier, you might not get everything that you wanted for him, but you also have to balance the idea that you still want fans coming in to the stadium as a GM, right? And stuff like that.
As a GM, I don't think that is.
You don't care about that portion?
If I'm the GM, I've been hired to put together a team that can win a World Series eventually. I can't sit there and worry if butts are going to be in the seats over the next 2 months.
Sure.
If that's my job, right? That's Derek Hall's job.
Yeah.
That's marketing's job. My job is to try to construct a roster that can compete in the future based on what we've seen happen this year. So I'm not even taking that into consideration. If I don't trade Gino, it's because I've had discussions with him and I know he might be willing to take a hometown discount.
Right.
But I'm not moving him because, well, we may keep an extra couple thousand people coming out to the ballpark because he's going to chase a home run number.
That's fair. That's fair.
But as a fan, I want to see him break the Diamondbacks single season home run record. I want to see him here because I want a reason to watch. But as a general manager, I can't think about that if I'm in his seat.
Do you think that trading him though jeopardizes the idea of bringing him back? Do you think that is that one of those things where historically for teams, keeping a guy like this when you could have traded him helps re-sign him at the end of the season?
Well, I mean, again, I would have to know that he is committed to re-signing, and then I wouldn't trade him. You can get assets and bring him back. I'm not playing that game. I'm not taking that chance. If I want to keep him, I'm not trading him, and I'm having those conversations about what can we realistically get done, right? Because too many factors go into that.
Yeah. Feels like once he leaves these walls, once he leaves this team, that opens him up that much more to being coerced by a different team
or feeling hurt because you actually even if you have discussions.
Even if he's open to it, even if he understands and is like, yeah, that sounds good, and then we can discuss coming back. The idea of being traded by a team is hurtful. And again, I think that once you go somewhere else and you start being treated a certain way by a different team, it makes it that much harder for you to really commit to going back to where you were at.
Yeah, it's the old friends. We were on a break. No. There's no break if you want to be together, right? Like that can't happen.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think that the Diamondbacks right now really don't have a choice but to make these trades. And even honestly, even Gino, I think my big concern is, you talk about the Diamondbacks not committing to spending more financially this offseason. How much is it going to cost after this season that he's had to lock Gino down, even on a shorter term deal that he might be open to with this particular team? Is he going to limit himself to just a 3-year deal or something like that in order to come back to the Diamondbacks? I'm not really that sure about that, which again, that makes me feel like we're keeping him for all the wrong reasons, ticket sales, feeling how much we like him, all of that stuff, and not making those tough calls where you have a player that probably is worth more than most players on the trade block right now. And if you don't make that move, you might have cost the future of your franchise something big.
Unless you think that he is that piece and that you're going to try to compete next year, there's no reason to play that game. And I just don't see him spending next year after how bad they got burned this year. So
and it sucks because a lot of people will continue to talk about front offices and owners being stingy, but I don't see that with this Diamondbacks team. I think Ken Kendrick and the ownership team did everything they could to continue to add to this team after they made it as far as they did in 2023. And unfortunately, hasn't worked out. And that's baseball in general, right? Like
That's Arizona in general.
It's Arizona sports in general. You can't throw money at the problem and then expect it to go away. But we thank you guys for your time so much. We appreciate you stopping by. Make sure to leave your thoughts on what the Diamondbacks should do here at the trade deadline and who you would like to see moved and who you would like to see stick around. Also, make sure to like this video. Follow us right here on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at cap_caveman with a K. This guy's inexplicably just at Espo. Shows at PHNX_Dbacks. But as always, all roads lead to at PHNX_sports. Thank you again for your time. And remember, kids, baseball is fun, but it's more fun when these decisions aren't so tough.